All right, it's about time to get this going here on Fox 10. I'm Chief Meteorologist Jason Smith with an update on what's happening with Helene, a dangerous hurricane that is currently located in the northeast section of the Gulf of Mexico, tracking up into Apalachee Bay. It's going to be most likely a catastrophic hurricane. It is hitting a part of the coastline that's a little bit more sparsely populated as far as the exact coast, the beach. There's not really a beach where it's going in. It's just going into kind of a marshy area in Florida's Big Bend, but there will be communities that will be heavily impacted, and not just like east of Tallahassee and around Monticello and over to Live Oak, but inland from there all the way up into Georgia. So let's take a look at it here. And the first thing I want to do is show you what's happening with the storm. And it is a Category 4 storm here on the Saffir-Simpson scale. So there it is up full. It's a very large hurricane. It has a very, very large wind field. And this is a big issue, to have a storm of this magnitude that is likely going to be a player in the forecast as we go through the day today, tonight, and into tomorrow morning, all the way up into parts of Georgia. So here's another way of looking at it. This is our wobble tracker, and we're checking the path, the motion of the storm since about 5 o'clock to see if it's lining up with the prediction from the National Hurricane Center. And it's in the cone, but it's on the east side of the cone, which means it's more likely to come ashore somewhere a little closer to Perry, Florida than, say, Carabel, Florida. And it's going to most likely track on the east side of Tallahassee based on what we're seeing right now, which may actually help Tallahassee a little bit. You don't want to have the center pass over you, and you don't want to have the area just east of the center pass over you. Now, this is a huge storm, so it's going to have big impacts. And if we look at the wind field right now, you can see the wind field. The tropical storm force winds extend from near South Florida down into the Everglades and near Miami, all the way up the east coast to Jacksonville and into Georgia. With tropical storm force winds right now, the hurricane force winds are almost ashore. We're getting close to that leading edge. And there it goes. We show it coming ashore sometime around 10 p.m. And we could see some substantial winds. I expect a lot of damage along Interstate 10 from about Tallahassee eastward, almost all the way to Jacksonville. The trees are going to be down like crazy, and then it's going to head up into southern Georgia, and it's moving so fast. That's why we think it will be relatively intact as it heads into Georgia. And by 2 a.m., we've got it as a Cat 2 in central Georgia. This may be an unprecedented event for Georgia with, the tree damage can be unbelievable with these landfalling tropical systems when they're able to penetrate and work their way further inland. And we do see it close to Atlanta by tomorrow morning. So here it is on the water vapor loop. This is one thing that I want to point out is that there's, on the west side of it, you can see back towards Houston here. See if I can get my pointer tool up so I can show you. There's a lot of brown stuff. And this is all deep layer dry air that's going on in Louisiana. It's trying to sweep into our area. We're going to get a little piece of this. We're actually going to see decent weather, and it's walled the rain off. We're just not seeing the rain in our area, but the hurricane's so large and it's moving so fast that it's been able to kind of wall off that dry air that's trying to intrude on the system. And ultimately, it's going to merge with the trough that's bringing it to the north, but in short term, still the potential of the environment is there for intensification. As we are tracking it here tonight. 130 mile per hour Category 4. This is the position as of 7 p.m. It's very close to landfall. It's 80 miles west-southwest of Cedar Key, Florida. And let me see if I can zoom this map in a little bit here. I'm going to zoom it in way tight. All right, so there's not a lot in the way of highly populated cities along this part of Florida's coast. You can see the icon and you can see the shape of the coast. And some of the worst of the storm is getting into the Steinhatchee area right now. Steinhatchee it's a small community. It's kind of a fishing type village. And Cedar Key, there is a little small beach there. There's another one between Cedar Key and Steinhatchee called Horseshoe Beach. Once you get past Steinhatchee, there's nothing on the coast until you get over to Carabel, because it's just marsh that leads down to the edge and kind of just gradually transitions out into the Gulf with some grass flats. There are some towns along Highway 90 8 there though. So Perry, Florida is one of the larger towns. It's still a relatively small, old Florida kind of community. If you've ever traveled on 29 to try and get away from some of the traffic in Orlando, there are communities here. There's a lot of agriculture in this area, but this is not hitting an area where there's a beach, where there are beach houses and condominiums. So a little bit different type of coastline than what most people think of when they think of Florida. I mean, we think of the Panhandle, Destin, and all the development, Pensacola and Panama City. So the track, how close will it come to Tallahassee? Well, if it takes the east side of this track, I think that Tallahassee might be better off, but over to Monticello and Greenville, Florida, might be in worse shape. So around 221 and getting over towards Madison, and we'll probably see major damage way to the east, because remember, it has such a large wind field. I expect damage over towards Lake City. So I've got the track really zoomed in here so you can see it. I think Mariana, Florida will be okay. There'll be some tropical storm type damage there. It'll be generally about Category 1 hurricane damage in Tallahassee, and then it goes up through Thomasville, Georgia, Valdosta, and near Americus, and then moving north around Albany and I-75, and then it'll head up into Atlanta. So that gives you an idea of what's going to happen with this thing tomorrow. And the long-range track takes it up into the Appalachians. It will be a depression, we think, by tomorrow evening, somewhere between Chattanooga and Knoxville. It's going to take all that rain up into that higher terrain, and that higher terrain is going to squeeze the moisture out, and we could see some tremendous freshwater flooding in North Georgia and into western North Carolina and eastern Tennessee. Definitely going to be a serious situation for a while here. The models take the remnants up into the Tennessee Valley, and then they kind of fizzle it out. So we don't see it coming back over water or affecting us. Storm surge heights. So this is an area of Florida that's very vulnerable to storm surge. And it's because the continental shelf extends a long ways out. And so when you have that shallower water, it's really easier for the wind to drive the water up. There'll be more run up, and it's putting it up in a pocket, a little bowl called Appalachia Bay. And that's where the storm surge values could be 15 to 20 feet, which is really high. Now, Hurricane Katrina hit 27. It won't be that high. And the only thing that's keeping it from being that high is the fact the storm is moving so fast. It's not enough time for the storm surge to really build in those upper 20 ranges, but we do see crazy storm surge values still possible, and I think you'll have a lot of damage and flooding from Pine Island all the way back around to Carabel. You know, this may pass a little east of Carabel, but because of the shape of the coastline, I expect the water rise to still be very significant over to Lanark Village, Carabel, Panacea, Crawfordville, and back in the direction of Apalachicola. Locally, the only real impacts we'll see will be that higher rip current risk at the beaches, rough surf, and then calming down a little bit on into Saturday. Locally, we haven't seen much rain. We've just got some passing showers over towards Destin. Outer bands are being impeded upon by that drier air, and so we're going to have nice weather. I know it's we don't want to gloat, we don't want to talk it up because we know what people are having to deal with to the east of us, but it's actually helping our weather. So Helene bringing in temperatures for lows tonight in the low to mid 60s. Tomorrow's high 84, mid 60s on Friday, mid 60s on Saturday night too. Daytime highs in the upper 80s this weekend, and no rain. So we're getting great weather so far with this tropical season. It's really worked out well for us, but our neighbors to the east are getting a terrible storm tonight. Helene is a bad one. It is a big one and a bad one, and I expect the damage to be catastrophic. There's going to be power outages and whatnot in this area, that it could take weeks to restore power. I expect with this kind of Category 4 type winds, we're going to have roof damage, structural damage. It's going to be a terrible situation. And getting closer to landfall now, the core of the storm is about 90 miles offshore, and it's moving to the north at about 23. So I'm expecting around 10 or 11 p.m. we're going to be talking landfall. We're going to be covering that on Fox 10 News tonight, so you want to join us for full coverage. I'll have updates on Helene.